Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Chapter 3. The most formative years of a child's life are generally from birth to 8 years old. We undergo significant cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. And I want to emphasize my going from a very laxed, loving atmosphere to a very structured, unloving one was extremely difficult for any child. But where I was taught to please no matter what, whatever came up, I knew that I had to please in order to keep the peace and keep everyone happy. I stayed in Savannah for 2 years, and of course you heard my little stories about my memories of playing with the kids and, the things not all that great. Then we up and moved to Warner Robins. Now, Warner Robins is the second largest air base in the country. And where we moved to was really, believe it or not, my salvation. Oh my God, I didn't know it when I was going there. Now, I don't remember if I had gone to see my grandparents or not in the interim. I probably had gone down to see them. But that memory also has eluded me. We got to Warner Robins. I was starting school. I was 5 years old. I started school early. And where we had moved to is back in the war, these barracks, they had barracks for the soldiers. And after the war was over, they took the barracks, which were long buildings that probably had 6 to 8 apartments on one side, and then there was an alleyway, and then on the other side was about 8 more apartments, and they went stacked like that. Well, we moved into one of those, and I was in heaven because all around me there were little kids my age, and we were all starting to school together, or siblings were in school, and I found that school was my paradise, my haven. Now remember, I had already been taught how to please. I had become like a chameleon. I could go into any situation and be exactly what you wanted me to be. I could be pretty, I could be happy, I could be this, I could be smart, I could be this. It was just a real tough time for me because of the so many arguments in the home. I mean, the home was tumultuous, to say the least. And when I walked in there, the only thing I remember doing was praying that there would not be a big knockdown drag out, which there normally was. So when I got to school, I was in heaven. I had wonderful teachers, Miss Farah, Miss Falver, Miss Sheffield I fell in love with. And we had all these things at school that we got to do. So I got to shine. In other words, I got to have fun. I got to laugh. I got to do the things that I was not allowed to do in that home, which was wonderful to me. I remember a story we had, I think in the 2nd grade, we had a play called Tom Thumb's Wedding. Now, you know the story of Tom Thumb and his wife. They were very tiny people. Well, I was so upset because I wanted to be that bride and wear that white long dress. And I couldn't because I was too big and I had to be in the chorus line. But I remember my mother made me a beautiful little dress. I remember it had little purple violets on it. And I loved it. I could twirl in it and it would go way out. And I was in heaven. However, my mother did not go to the play. Now, these are some of the things that I remember. I remember my best friend, Doris Forehand. They lived right down across the way from us. She had an older brother, Donnie. She had an older sister, Margie. And there was then another older sister that I used to run and get to the phone. She was the only one that got any phone calls on our phone. And we had like 16 people, I think, that were on the party line when we got our first phone. So these are the things I remember about this time. I also remember something else. I had very naturally curly hair like I do now, but my mother insisted, and all the girls in the neighborhood had them. And I guess that's why she felt that I had to have them too. She gave us a home perm. And it was the rankest smelling solution that you would ever want to smell. These little teeny tiny rollers that she would roll so tight in my head that I thought my head was going to fall off. And I had to sit and let it dry. And then she took it out, rinsed it out, and combed my hair. And if you're not going to think that I did not have the kinkiest hair around, you are right, I did. And it looked terrible. But that was what, you did. You went along with what your parents said. I enjoyed school. I did not enjoy coming home because, as I said, there was so much structure. Everything had to be perfect. I remember we moved into a house later on, and I'll bring this up only because it's kind of, goes in with the story, but we could not eat. My mother always baked. She was the most wonderful cook you'd ever want to see in your life. And she always had cakes and pies and cookies and everything. Well, we had an old TV. We could not go in and eat a piece of cake in that living room. And the couch and everything was fake leather. Only thing you had to do is wipe it off. I never did understand that. When we finished our meals, you had to get up, wash the dishes. Not only wash them, but you had to never let them drain in the drain. They couldn't dry like that. You had to dry them, put them away, and then on top of that, you had to sweep the kitchen. So this is the kind of structure that I'm talking about. Your bed had to be made before you went to school. When you came home from school, your books had to be put in a certain place. When you studied, you had to sit at the desk. You could not sit in your bed like I'm doing right now and do your homework. It was not allowed because it was messy. And there was no mess allowed. Everything had to be perfect in that home along with me. So if you do not think that that is not something that is a hard thing to put on a child at such a young age, and so many women especially have gone through this in their lives, and if you don't think that it doesn't follow you throughout your life and wreak havoc and mess with your relationships, it'll even mess with your children's relationship. It did mine terribly because I couldn't get out of that mode of having to be perfect. Everything had to be absolutely perfect. And as we go along, I will get into that. However, what I want to get back to is that school was my salvation. I went to school. I could be me. I didn't have anyone telling me to sit down and be quiet. Be quiet. Don't do this. Don't do that. I heard the word don't in my lifetime. I bet you, I don't think there's even a number high enough for it, to be honest with you, because I heard it so much. And I got the normal childhood diseases. I got the measles. Oh, another thing I remember in school. Oh my gosh, they used to come to the schools to inoculate us. And they would have a long line and they'd have all these needles laid out. And all of us kids were standing there waiting to get a shot. Oh my gosh, I remember I got the little prickly shot that made the little blister. I forgot what it was even called. I still got the scar somewhere. But they did those. They did a typhoid shot that when they gave you the typhoid shot and you let your arm down, you swore that it was going to fall off. So I was in about the second grade and I had the mumps. No, I had the measles. And I went back to school. And I don't even remember coming home from school. I went into a coma, which is kind of normal for after having the measles. I don't know. It's called Ray's syndrome or something. Anyway, I was in a coma for like 5 days. Now, back then, you just didn't go to hospitals and stuff. The doctor came to the house. I guess they hoped for the best. I was put in the living room, and I remember one of our neighbors was a nurse, and she would come down and take care of me every day and give me shots or medicine or whatever I needed. And I remember laying there, and I woke up, and my stepfather was looking down at me. And I remember it scared me so bad because I didn't know where I was or what was going on. But I knew that something bad had happened to me. But I got up, and maybe that's the cause. Maybe that raised syndrome is the cause of all my craziness today. I don't know. Who in the world knows? But these are the things that I remember about this time. And once again, the home was very difficult to live in. Very difficult. There were hard fights. There was yelling. There was screaming. There was calling each other names. I couldn't understand it. And I remember so many times when I hear the car door close of him coming home, my stepfather coming home, it would be like I had a sentence of some kind that was put down on me that it was going to be bad. And I remember when he left, he would sometimes go out at night and he'd go down to Front Street and have a couple of beers. And I was like, please let him stay gone all night. Please let him stay gone all night. And once again, my mother was just as much a cause of the chaos as he was. I know his demands on her were absolutely horrible, but I don't understand how she did not stand up and not fight with him, but just to get out. How can you live? But I guess you have a child, you're worried about security, you're worried about a roof over your head, and her only option was to go back down to my grandparents in a primitive way of living where that little town had absolutely no jobs whatsoever. And my mother never worked. She was fortunate in that situation, but maybe it would have been better had she gone out and got a job, instead of sitting there and being him walking in and walking around almost like a general with the glove and, oh, there's dust on that table and, oh, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And she heard those words as much as I did. So we were more or less brainwashed, and it was horrible. I'll be honest with you, it was horrible. But it molded me. It made me a pleaser. And that is not a good thing. Absolutely not. It made me weak in my life. And as time goes on, and you will hear this because a lot happened in between, but literally when I got in high school, basketball saved my life because it kept me out of the home so very much. Because by then, it was really, really bad. And my stepfather just would not. He refused to leave me alone. I mean, it was a terrible situation that I was under, living under his roof and not being able to defend myself or take care of myself, and no one to do it for me. Literally, no. My mother did not stand up for me. She did not. I don't feel that she protected me like she should have and could have. And in the meantime, when I was in the 2nd grade, she had my baby sister. And that was another thing. Now, I love my baby sister. I would take care of her. I thought she was the most wonderful thing on this planet. And I would have done anything for her. But there was an 8 years difference in there. And when she came home, of course, she was my stepfather's daughter, which made a huge difference. I was not. And let me tell you, it was thrown up in my mother's face many, many times that he was raising her child. And I would hear these things, and it was a crushing blow to me because that instilled in you that you did not belong anywhere. I didn't belong. I didn't belong to anybody. My mother was distant. He told her that I wasn't his child and he did not owe her anything, that he was doing it out of the goodness of his heart. And that is a horrible thing for a child to have to listen to. And at 7, 8, and 9 years old, you know what's going on. You know what's happening. You know exactly what's being said. And so you have to take it. So what are you going to do? You're going to make the best of it, the best you can, where you can, when you can. And that for me was in school when we had our May Day. We had a May Day pole dance, and we got the streamers, and we would dance around the pole. We had plays. And oh, my most favorite, oh, I loved Halloween. Oh, I couldn't wait till Halloween. And my mother did. She always made me a costume. And I remember one time, And she used this crepe paper. Everybody used crepe paper. And of course, at school, it was very different because we had the Halloween carnival. And we'd have go in there and go fishing, and we would have the haunted house, and we would bob for apples, and you went from room to room and did all these exciting Halloweeny things. Well, she made me a costume that was a pumpkin. Orange, big old orange. It came up at the top of my legs and with elastic around my neck, and then she took the green crepe paper and made the leaf, and then she made me a little orange hat with a little stem coming out in green. She really did a wonderful job, but my mother could crochet and sew and cook and do all of those things magnificently. I can't do any of it. I crocheted one time and crocheted a string about this long, and I wish you could have seen it. She said, honey, I don't think you'll ever be able to do that. And I didn't anymore. But anyway, I'll go to the Halloween carnival, and I come home and I was completely orange all the way down my legs, my arms, and then there was green that come down, run through the orange. And if I wasn't, and of course the pumpkin itself had deflated. There was no round pumpkin. And if I did not look like a mess, they should have had a video camera back then to show what we looked like, because we looked really, really funny. And all of us, I'm sure, ended up like that. But these are the things that I remember, and it all has to associate with school. And so school was my out. School was my forming. Whatever good was formed in my school and by my teachers. And so I went from the first grade up to the fifth grade in Warner Robbins there, and then things got so bad at home that they took me and put me back down at my grandmother's, and there were many reasons for that. There was a main reason for that, and it had to do with my stepfather. And I just couldn't stay under the roof any longer, because it was, I'm not going into detail. I refuse to go into detail, because I love my sister dearly, and I just don't feel it's necessary. But I'm sure anyone out there that knows anything about what goes on within families can probably guess and know what it was. But I stayed there until the summer of the fifth grade, and then I had to leave. And of course, that made me happy, because I was going back to a place where I was loved, and I knew it well, and I knew that I was safe. That's the main thing, is that I knew that I was safe. And so those are the years in there. My sister was born. I love my sister dearly. And as I said, then it got so bad that they took me out. So chapter 4, come back, and you're going to hear all the stories about how I got into basketball, how I managed to live, and what I had to go through, even down in Cairo, Georgia, the little town of Cairo, Georgia. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. And if you have any comments or anything that you would like for me to cover in my stories, send me a message. I'll be glad to. But I just want you to know my side of it. And of course, it's going to get extremely interesting once I get married. And then there will be the drugs and all that craziness that went on in the 60s. So stay with me now. Stay tuned, and don't go away. Keep watching. Also, I have it set up on a playlist. You just go in and hit the playlist, and you'll see all of my different videos, and they're under plays. And this one is the one that'll have the chapters of my book. And I love you guys dearly, but you know that anyway. And I'll see y'all next week. Love you. Bye-bye.